All right, we are back. Dynasty Trades in 5. I'm Clay.
I'm Shane.
I am Coop. Scott, Amari Cooper. Let's go.
Yeah, so we get comments in the on the YouTube channel asking us to do certain players. Amari was one of those guys. The commenter said he was a tough guy to value. I don't disagree. He turns 28 next June. What are your thoughts on him, Scott?
Well, he's turning into just one of those guys where you kind of just know what you're going to get. I mean, this is kind of what we talked about prior to the episode was at this point, he's 28. There really isn't some undiscovered ceiling that he's probably going to give you. But I tend to think with the way people start to value these guys, they start to kind of wear on you and people just they don't have any luster anymore. And so I do think this might be one of the first years where not that you can get him as a bargain, but I think he's going to slip into that territory because he's coming off a year where he's going to end up finishing outside of the top 24. He really tapered off at the end of the year, going through his game log. If everyone remembers, he got COVID, then he came back. He had like a 3-game stretch where he just wasn't himself. So I know it's easy to look back and take away those couple games, but essentially if you remove those 3 games, you're talking about a guy that's probably a fringe wide receiver 2, around 15 or so points per game. But how replaceable is 15 points per game? And how many receivers are in the mix with Amari Cooper from like a mix of production and value wise that you'd prefer over him? You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of guys that I can get that are 23, 24 that can give me 14 and a half points per game. And I'd much rather have those over Amari Cooper, even though he's tied to one of the pass heaviest offenses, one of the fastest offenses. He's carved out more of a market share than CeeDee Lamb over the last 2 years. So that's kind of an indictment, maybe a little bit on how good CeeDee Lamb is. So I think he's pretty stable. He'll probably be a guy that I want to buy more shares of this offseason, but it's going to try to come in the form of like, hey, can I buy him for that really late first in the draft where I'm sick of drafting this rookie receiver in this spot. You know what I mean? Let me diversify and maybe add a couple of Amari Cooper shares. So he's just not a scarce asset. So
He's a wide receiver 3 with a ceiling of wide receiver 2. We thought he was going to be a wide receiver 1 when we saw, his first 2 seasons because he was 7 years old when he came into the NFL. And all you heard about was how great of a 7-year-old he was. Imagine how good he was going to be when he was 9. And then he got to be 9 and it was all of a sudden, well, okay, eventually he's going to get better, right? I mean, he just kind of has always been the same guy, which, he's not bad. He peaked at 15 and a quarter points back in 2019. Like Scott said, that's about what he is. Difference between him and CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb's already exceeded that this year. He's hit 15.1, which actually isn't exceeded, but he's pretty much met it in his second year like you're supposed to. CeeDee Lamb's taking his lunch money. CeeDee Lamb is slowly but surely taking over the number 1 wide receiver role on that roster, as he should, because he's infinitely more talented. He is what he is. He's a wide receiver 3 with a ceiling of a 2. We need wide receivers 3s, right? There's nothing wrong with that. If I have to start at 10 or 11, get him on my roster. If I have to start 9, I could care less if I get Cooper on any of my rosters. And if I do, I'm just trying to combine him with something else to get a better wide receiver.
So a guy that we did a video on a while back, and who knows, we may have egg on our face when we do him a year from now again, Amon-Ra St. Brown or Amari Cooper?
Cooper.
I mean, it should be Cooper, but give me a month. I want to see if the Amon-Ra St. Brown hype train goes crazy, because you might be able to flip him for more. Because no matter what, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a flip for me.
How about Michael Pittman or Amari Cooper?
Cooper.
I mean, stat-wise, they're basically the same dude. It's just we thought Cooper was going to be an alpha, and he's just kind of a cuck. So I'm going to go with Pittman because we don't think Pittman's going to be a superstar, right? We know he is what he is. He's a wide receiver 2. I think we know that's his ceiling. But I also know that there's some in the market that are going to look at this year and go, well, if he had better quarterback play, he could have been a wide receiver 1. And you're going to go, no, you're definitely right. That's why you should trade for him. So that's why I'll take Pittman. He's younger and he's got probably a little more value on the market.
Okay. Would you rather have Amari Cooper and the 202 or Deontay Johnson?
DJ.
Yeah, I think I like the process on that, and I think just one of the things to get back to what Shane said with Pittman, you have like Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper. All those guys are kind of in the same bucket. I would say Cooper's probably the lowest of those three, but if I'm buying receivers in this range, I'm selling the young guys that people will pay for. So Michael Pittman, I can get a first. I may not be able to get a first for Amari Cooper in a lot of leagues, but just give me the Dallas Cowboys. Give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If I'm buying receivers in this range, just give me those offenses that any given week can have those monster weeks. I don't want a Colts or a Lions receiver.
What about Cortland Sutton in the 204 or Amari Cooper?
Amari Cooper.
Shane didn't even hesitate on that.
I mean, because you're basically just offering me the 204, and
no, I'm offering you the 204 in the hope that Aaron Rodgers or some godsend goes to Denver.
You get that target share up to 15% for Cortland Sutton. Maybe make him a wide receiver 4. I hear you.
I do think if you're scared of having a guy like Amari Cooper on your roster, then that's the type of move that you make. You're going to have to go down into the dregs of the receivers that people don't want: Sutton, Galladay, Allen Robinson. And if you can get a deal like that where you get the 204 or the 202 or whatever, like you could whiff entirely on the receiver that you pivot to and still not come out that far behind of Amari Cooper by picking the wide receiver 6 at the 202. You know what I mean? Like that,
Yep.
That is kind of a smart move. And I think you can tag a Galladay or a Sutton or an A-Rob in a deal like that. And shit, you might end up with a better receiver. So how about Amari or DeAndre Hopkins?
I'll take Amari.
Yeah, I'll take Amari just because he's younger. I mean, that's really the only reason.
Okay. Would you rather have let's call it the 111 and Amari Cooper or Stephon Diggs?
Steph.
Ooh. Yeah, I think I'd go Diggs just because you kind of know what his ceiling could be, and you basically get the similar type of offenses and insulation with both guys. So I could stomach giving up the 111 in top of Cooper.
Okay. Last one, David Montgomery or Amari Cooper?
David.
Typically, I would say the receiver, but I like that idea of, especially if you're building a team, around a couple running backs like we've talked about and hit on some previous videos like that. This is the kind of way to get. I would rather give up Amari Cooper for David Montgomery than give up the 109 for David Montgomery.
Right.
I'd rather have the pick that I can use later and see what it becomes. So that is a good way to get the running back for sure.